peoples heaven, to birds the trees promised, to flowers the sun, to man the sky sacred chain tied with a link most tender Lord, give us wisdom to comprehend these voices, thy wisdom higher than necessity above the abysses. So many are the unanswered questions, they wade through the cry of all eyes, thou canst give everything to people, sky to birds, trees to flowers, sunshine, thou bringest relief to everyone, you give joy sacred, you color the trees with leaves, flowers with fragrance, and to people with heaven, thou canst do all things. 1547. The soul is so created by God that it does not like to love itself. If it loves God within itself, and the love it creates in itself it loves to realize among others. Only in relationship with another soul and souls, it feels love and happiness. For this reason too, no one likes loneliness. Fortunately, in heaven no one is lonely, because souls make love with all the souls they want. There you will have all of heaven at your disposal. Padre Pio's words. 1548. It only takes one thought to experience happiness. Thought is the cause of all seeing. Because, in fact, happiness is about seeing. Feeling is also seeing. Pleasure is seeing. Even music is seeing, although we hear it, because it activates the imagination, which is seeing. All the senses, the feeling of the body converge always at one point, in the soul as a totality of sensations. The soul sees, otherwise it would not be a soul. Consciousness, or as some call it subconsciousness, is the soul. Only the soul moves neurons and circulates blood in the body. The expression of vision is our earthly eyes. First of all, the imagination sees, and the imagination is the soul. There is nothing of man except the soul. Every movement of the body is the soul. Even when one undergoes a heart or other organ transplant, the soul knows it all. But the soul is not permanently bound to the material body and allows transplants. In heaven, transplants don't exist, nor does surgery, nor a single doctor, hospital, or even a single church or shelter. So the situation is quite different. The soul is all we have. She is a conscious individual, created by God from the matter of happiness. Therefore, only happiness pleases us, nothing else. The soul is not a mist. Padre Pio's words. 1549. The more you think about the sublime and mysticism, the art of God, the more happiness you will achieve. It will be easier for you to endure earthly suffering, which happened to us completely unnecessarily. God never fell into the trap of suffering. Neither did some of the angels. We have the honor of knowing what suffering is. Leaving paradise, a matter not fully thought out. I think it is necessary to start repenting. The wise already know this. 1550. One can lose the gifts of the Spirit if the soul ceases to be reflective and is only concerned with the world, in which it will eventually perish anyway. The soul must have higher goals than the short-term pleasure of living in the galaxy. You can always give up spiritual life, heavenly desires, and give in to laziness, that is, a hard life in worthless matter. You can work for money from morning to evening, be a skilled worker, a recognized scientist, a writer, a musician, a journalist, and spiritually you are a sloth for 24 hours. And you gain nothing from living for heaven. Didn't Jesus mention that? Time is not money, time is art. It would be better if people worked less and engaged in culture, art, philosophy of life, weaving visions of eternal life. 1551. Once a word is spoken, it will not come back to you. Therefore, be careful what you say and to whom you say it. You can't tell everyone everything right away. However, to love you should encourage everyone. This is what everyone needs. Here do not spare words and effort. Padre Pio's words. We are living in galactic purgatory, and it is worthwhile to take advantage of it, so as not to waste your life on the lack of ideas of eternity. If you live the ideas mentioned by Jesus and Plato or Origen, you will find the way to eternal love. 1552. The situation is very serious. Serious because almost no one recognizes this seriousness. This is where all the drama lies. Intelligence combined with ego can kill reason and common sense in a person. Dusted with the dust of ignorance, the intelligentsia pursues its private and social goals without thinking deeply about them. The shattered spiritual intelligence no longer distinguishes between good and evil. It does not distinguish the subtle distinction between the two. It fails to notice the temptations swirling around it. Temptation fattens pride in man and lavishes all the elements of evil. But who today gives credence to this? They only become convinced of the effects of temptation when they lose something. But that is too late. Those who have stopped caring about purity of conscience will find it difficult to control their minds. 1553. The world is the soul and the soul is the world. The world, because of its ability to create happiness in different ways and in different unique forms. 1554. Happiness is afraid of bad thoughts and words. It is even afraid of unpleasant facial expressions of body and soul. Because it knows where it resides, that it is not an ideal world. 1555. Unfortunately, hubris conquers all areas of social life. It is most prevalent where we least expect it. We look at it with round eyes, see it and praise it. Sometimes we try to please her. There are also times when we seemingly fight it, oppose it, and forget and fail to see that we ourselves are absorbed in its charm. One has to use great intelligence to unmask its habitat within oneself. It is most prevalent in the intelligentsia spheres. Unfortunately, this is why scientists and authorities so easily turn our heads. They blind our inner vigilance. It's the same with politicians. We would follow them into the fire. And for what reason? The reason for evil is always hubris. Wars are about hubris and stubbornness in the belief that one is right. Love doesn't need this at all. If a couple of fiancés had been delicious and sinned in stubbornness with separate rationales, they would never have married. They are like lambs in the beginning, agreeing with the vision and hope. Then a lot changes. Pride comes to the fore, which expresses itself through ego, thoughts, and actions. Hence the importance of neutralizing the flaw of rigid beliefs every day. There is always one step away from the fuse, and one can inadvertently lead to disaster. In marriage, politics, among the military, police, hospital presidents, in the church, etc. Angels crush each other with pride, lack of understanding, lack of tolerance, and humility. 1556. Man is the most beautiful and intelligent being on this planet among all animals. Padre Pio's words. Thinking this, we shudder, because somehow we don't believe that we are just animals. But do the animals we know feel like souls? That is the conundrum question. 1557. Everyone strives for the greatest possible joy and pleasure in life. Tranquility is also pleasure, and it is achieved in a million ways. Such is the human and eternal goal, and form, beauty, and shape play an overwhelming role in this. No one likes ugly objects, etc. For this reason, in heaven there is only beauty, no foulness, fakery, and something that would make us look away. Well, and there is a fresh tranquility. 1558. For heaven you need to whet your appetite in yourself every day. If you go gray, busy with busyness and ego ambitions, nothing will come of it. Once again after death you will fall into a rut of gray, kolkhoz, science, and technology. That's why Jesus wisely said, only by the rapture is the kingdom of heaven conquered. This rape should be inflicted on your ego. 1559. The soul is beautiful equal to the general beauty and beauty of the body. It depends on what world it lives in. The soul is also the body, only that it is spiritual, more subtle than material shells. 1560. Ideals, beauty belongs to them. Beauty attracts, external and internal. Music, images, shape, feelings, seeing, hearing, experiencing. Everything is the soul, otherwise known as the self. 1561. Regarding ideals, they exist, they are encoded in the imagination of our soul. They cannot be easily transferred to the material ground, because we are burdened by genetics. Lack of proper senses. 5 human senses are categorically not enough. Heaven is the real of imagination, concrete, but only in heaven with God, on his perfect planets. On earth there is neither God nor ideals. One can only yearn for them. Try not to harm oneself or own neighbor. There is a powerful veil of ignorance. Man has no chance to break through it. Programmed evolution by our fellow angels, with whom we once came out of heaven, does not allow it. As much as we can, it was not for nothing that it was proclaimed that angels needed to be saved. There is a great reason for this. Ideals have been lost through science and stubbornness, and we ourselves continue it. That's why so few people strive for heaven, because they don't even know if it even exists. It does exist. It is perfect. On earth, right, no one is saved when he dies. Padre Pio's words. 1562. Jesus did not order the building of churches, chapels, or any religious state, because he kept saying, "Do you not know that you are the temple?" He didn't establish any religious orders. He said nothing to build the Vatican and huge businesses around it. Jesus' knowledge has been turned inside out. Can it be reversed for the sake of souls? Probably da. Slowly it will be done. 2,000 years squandered. Maybe the next 2,000 will be better for the salvation of souls in the cosmos. If he could play the guitar. If I could play the guitar like the angels, I would make the whole world sing. If I could play the wind rushing through the meadows and flowers, I would play all day to please you. If I could play like a lark's song, I would play nights endlessly praising love under the stars. If I could play the conversations of holly worms, I would win people's secrets. If I could play the guitar to be heard by lakes and forests, I would hum about friendship with nature. Oh, if I could play like that, I would look into the moon's disk, with riches the poor deliberated, the sad comforted. Oh, if I knew how to play like this. 1563. Fate is the wizard of ignorance. After that, once you can abandon belief in secrets after death, what remains is the openness and pure delight of life in heaven. An incomprehensible fairy tale of delights and raptures of the heavenly soul and body. 1564. On earth, you have to fight a little to win, like football players on the field. It takes struggle to learn, for example, to sacrifice your walk for someone. Every step counts, like in a soccer championship. You have to play as a team, so pray for others, help, sacrifice some suffering or joy for the most needy angels on earth and in the galaxy. We are an angel team, one for all for one, until this world ends, and it will end after all. That's what Jesus foretold too. 1565. Your soul and body is to be possessed by love. When you become all wrapped up in love, you will stop casting any shadow. The simplest ideal in this world, and at the same time the most complicated. 1566. There is nothing to dream of security if the laws of love and respect and non-aggression are not respected in society. The laws of not arguing about views, beliefs that mean nothing with God anyway. Garbage. Even St. Thomas Aquinas, on whom all of Catholicism is based, said at the end of his life, "Everything I have written means as much as hay fit for burning." 1567. The result of a good education, in which truly spiritual and objective development was also undertaken, is peace, love, responsibility, balance of life forces, awakening consciousness. How many extravagances, how many circumstances biased created, how much around integration and at the same time disintegration, how much seriousness as well as ignorance, how many pseudo-problems. Despite the progress in culture, iniquity still reigns. Lord, empower me. Make me not to soil the basic concepts with any thought. How much would be iniquity? You who penetrate societies, you who knows all information, strengthen me with your grace and grant me the original experience of love. Thou art the shield of the righteous systems and the salvation of unrest, seed of my joy. Do not forsake us in the just awakening light of consciousness. 1568. Faith, hope and love. This is enough to save own consciousness. But not to make it too simple, you need to analyze faith and turn it into knowledge. Love into sweetness, respect and nobility, not into suspicion, not into nosiness, aggression, jealousy, etc. 1569. We live without a perpetual motion machine. Therefore, the cosmos is constantly dying. The power supply from God to the material cosmos does not reach it, because the angels themselves cut it off. They thought that they would guarantee full prosperity for everyone. It has become otherwise. There is a shortage of energy. They decided to obtain it artificially through the digestive systems of material nature, digestion and excretion. The metabolism, the fire of life. But this too is coming to an end. The planets will be depleted, and the nebulae, where new suns should be formed, are fading. Thinly, the angels have run into a dead end. 1570, dark power came from light power, and from dark it becomes light if we so desire. We even sometimes say, from love to hate only a step. This is how the cosmos and politics work. We have to be careful how we think and what habits of thought we indulge in. Someone can persuade us to be evil, and we will become evil. Someone can set a bad example of conduct, and we ourselves will start acting that way. It is necessary to be vigilant so that we do not fall off the horse of life and get bruised, suffer an injury to the soul for the next reincarnation. What is the point? It is better to love everyone, be good, kind, have respect for all angels, good and bad. A good example gives hope even to the bad. Something stimulates them, something grows in their souls. 1571. To be good, to be likable, that's enough to enter heaven right off this earth. So little is needed, Padre Pio's words, just one, as Jesus mentioned. What matters is your consciousness, the soul. It reigns in the world and makes all decisions. Of hate or love, and only it needs salvation, not the body. The body rots, it is digested by worms and anaerobic or aerobic bacteria. And if it is burned, there are still other processes of decay. You get a new body. There is no problem with that. To be another newborn in this world. I advise against it, but this is understood by deep-thinking, spontaneous, and God-joyed people. 1572. The state has this task. It is supposed to help consciousness acquire perfection of soul, not only to make as much money as possible, but also to teach noble attitudes toward own fellow man through education. Religions and scriptures from around the world can be ignored. They are falsified anyway. Plato wrote about democracy and monarchy at the same time. He most ridiculed the filth of democracy. One must look to Plato for clues to prosperity, peace, and lofty ideas of eternal life. Jesus repeated the same thing, only in different words. 1573. States are dying, systems are collapsing. Why? Precisely because we have lost our sense of the value of love. We don't care about the fate of everyone, but only about our own. This is not enough to live in symbiosis. There is too much privatization, Padre Pio's words. One does not look hard enough for the spiritual element. One has stopped dreaming of higher, out-of-time experiences. So we fall to earth too mundane, without flair or frenzy of happiness. We don't even have a political sense. We don't know who to vote for to make things better. This is where sympathies and beliefs play a role, which is why almost everyone is wrong in their choice. The ideal is unattainable on earth, but it is necessary to approach it, look at it, charge the soul with hope for better. 1574. Modesty and humility never cause conflict. If the system offers power for big money, including the judiciary, it means that politicians have been bought. So they cannot be reliable and truthful. This can be seen with the naked eye. They live like counts and the people suffer misery. What can be changed in the system in this case? Probably you can, but the huge money and business arrangements of politicians do not allow it for now. 1575. In fact, knowledge for humans is latent, covered up by science, the intelligence of higher civilizations. They have dominion over our planet. The earth is not anyone's. Someone specific owns it. Certainly not humanity and not God. We merely lease it. Whoever is able to escape this power, we then call him saved. This is what Jesus was talking about. But it only happens through knowledge and love. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. The aspiration is to neutralize school knowledge by believing in higher knowledge. Mystics such as Saint John of the Cross, Saint Teresa the Great, Saint Padre Pio expanded our reflective perception. Life is about learning about love and its forms. In heaven too. On earth, they limited this for us so that no one would know where we came from and what we were meant to be going to. Renew knowledge paths spread, Systems fanned out, bells of dogma cracked, death came in time, at the time of illusions blossoming, wanted to prevent it. But the night came in the time of broken inattention. From the bell of zeal, a deafening sound remained, thus death came like a thief in the night. A guard was set at the law. At the letter and superficiality of knowledge, rightly came its end. Give us love, and not tainted knowledge. 1576. Those who have moved away from the idea of power and control and more or less feel free. They have picked up Jesus' ideas of unconditional love of their neighbor, to whom they have stopped plucking the blade out of their eye because they did not see the beam in their own eye. Then they are actually on the right track to doing something positive. Otherwise, they will be walking around in a maze, and it will not do them much good in life. Just simple complacency. 1577. Especially these days, such a word as temptation is avoided. We have become accustomed to culture, technology, television, art, and we feel completely comfortable with it. Free, independent. The fashionable word today is independence. But in fact, we are all dependent on good and evil, except that evil we don't want to notice. We pass by it indifferently and even very tolerantly. Today, temptations are unfashionable and no importance is attached to them. We perform our duties, deal with difficult problems, follow international relations, and are, after all, writers, teachers, founders of cultural centers. We ask temptation, what is it? We have culture. It, luxury of life, nuclear energy are what matters. Temptation is a religious invention. Unfortunately, such is the belief among very many people. This view shows how far we have gone from the soul and the true philosophy of thinking. How far we have gone outside. The biggest temptation today is to be unhappy through material addictions, such as big money. One can be a very unhappy angel through them. Money is the biggest temptation in this life because impositions, power, and other emotions feed on it. Yes, one can be rich. This temptation does not apply to everyone. Everyone can have others. There were rich kings and they were always close to God. Padre Pio's words. 1578. Love is the substance of the soul and not the body. The body with the impulses of the soul can express it. The body itself is always dead, whether young or old. Only the soul decides that the body lives. Top-down programmed for transience. Love is consciousness. It is the heart that extends its cognition inside and outside the soul. If we say that we love, it is felt by the soul and not the body, although the words flow from the brain and mouth, through the tongue and teeth. The essence of goodness of love is the soul, not the material body. The experiment with bodies has failed in the cosmos. The body cannot turn into a soul, and the soul into a body. Now in cosmic bodies, we have a lot of problems with this. Once born, the body has acquired characteristics from which it cannot free itself. The soul has taken a form in which it will be stuck for the rest of its life. Someday this will change. In heaven one does not have qualities. Padre Pio's words. 1579. Why is God hidden and cannot be seen? Simple. It is us, a very long time ago through our own and personal decisions, who decided this. God wants us to see Him. But first we must improve our eyes, because there is a problem with them. There must be a greater influence of the soul on the eyes. 1580. You need to regain full happiness, but already without the food system, which brutally kills plants and animals and even bacteria throughout the universe. On Earth and in the galaxies, unattainable. It is necessary to change consciousness now. This is the most important for this life and the next. 1581. Let me be clear. Anyone who wants to be born on Earth or on other planets in the galaxy, this or that, becomes a conscious murderer. Anyone who is born in the material world is crazy. He knows nothing about heaven. He has forgotten how wonderful it was without killing. Actually, everyone born in the material lands is born in prison and has to shed the blood of other beings. Some people make this a religious ritual, which plunges them even further. Man must kill because he wouldn't survive on his own, like a tiger, for example. And this purgatory lasts almost indefinitely. Padre Pio's words. When the soul recovers within itself through thought, art, culture, subtle areas of consciousness, it will not need to be born in this kolkhoz. 1582. The laws of physics trump all good. The laws of physics are satanic, murderous, and nature is grave bloodthirsty. All of us as one we kill, and we ourselves will eventually die. We will be left ashes in the dying. That is why St. Peter said, "We have all sinned." And period. Just go for a relaxing walk for you, a bike ride, immediately corpses thousands behind you leave. In the case of a bike, in addition, flies fall into your eyes, which you pull out massacred, drowned earlier in your salty, baking tears. Going to work, to church for mass, you trample all the time living beings who howl in pain and call on God for help. And you, pleased with yourself, go to Holy Communion and praise God that you are alive and not sick. What hypocrisy! You are not a saint. Forget it. You murder every now and then. You don't want to see it and even hear about it, that you do it. What is wonderful? That God, in spite of such a global tragedy, has given a hand to each of us. In spite of the fact that we kill, He wants in His mercy to save us and take us to the land of the most wonderful dreams, sweet realizations, to heaven. God, it's not us, selfish, self-obsessed people who deserve eternal damnation. God is different. He is not vindictive. He knows that in the galaxies created by His children, there are no ideals. There aren't any anywhere, except in heaven. That's why Jesus, the wise angel, said, "Seek first the kingdom of heaven." Plato was actually saying the same thing as Jesus, perhaps only in different words. Departure from God did not have to happen, but it happened to us. It happened even before Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, this is only a synonym for what really happened much earlier. Padre Pio's words. Adam and Eve are already the result of the reincarnation of souls, the creation of the body by the gods of the cosmos, the angels who came out of paradise and posited the material heavens in which we still live today. Unfortunately, this separation from the right wild God still continues when it comes to the material world. It is so difficult to break through to heaven that beings like Jesus, like Padre Pio, have to come from heaven to somehow help the aliens, i.e. us, return to eternal paradise. Everyone must try to save themselves, seek guidance, good teachings, and ask for help at the same time. There is no other way. Jesus did not arrange everything. He came to a handful of Israel. If He had settled, they would all have been in heaven long ago, and the kolkhoz still exists. He Himself moreover said, "And from there I assure you, you will not leave until you have given your last shekel." Subtle shards of unleashed rationales on the backs of discoveries of conviction detonation are distant and have gone beyond the goodness of ultra-powerful experience. More power than courage is needed to overcome microscopic shades of uncontrollable rationale social taste in despotic changes of convictions in the cosmic multiplicity of mental authorities outlines directions that turn authentic nobility to not hours of pre-contemplation and incomprehensibility of the world is an unusually vivid conjuncture of intellectual coquetry. But love conquers all. 1583. Man loses awareness of God every now and then. All it takes is a little absent-mindedness and God slips away. But this is due to the frailty of the human body. The body is a delicate and fragile structure given for a moment and very unreliable. Don't be surprised by yourself. Rely on God through trust and faith. You don't have to think about God if you do, but it's worth remembering that He thinks about us. Padre Pio's words. He wants contact. With simple words you can break Him. Not with philosophy. He is love like us. The game is just beginning. 1584. Love is as much about forgetting everything that was wrong in life and remembering the delight of the soul, expressed also in the imperfect body we have for the time being. But this will change. We will regain our divine bodies. It is worth thinking about this today and desiring it constantly. God has constructed souls in such a way that what they desire, they will receive. However, this is not fulfilled in the galaxies, as they are unoriginal heavens. One must possess the true heaven. Only there it is fully possible. 1585. All for the glory of God. He created us so wonderful, we can make music, paint pictures, write poems, cook wonderful soups, caress, and experience delights. Only glory to Him. Let us think only of Him, and we will experience pleasure from all the angels in heaven. To glorify life itself, this is a tribute to God, for He is the life, and we are imitating Him for now. And then we will live His life. Something wonderful awaits us. Those who created the cosmos, for us, as if it were already hell, also had such ideas in the beginning, all for the sake of goodness and beauty. This needs to be understood. It will be easier to pass from this life to a better one after the death of the body. 1586. Although we live in unoriginal worlds, imperfectly copied from the ideal world heaven, and yet degraded to the level of constant suffering, which Plato also mentioned, we retain the freedom of the soul. We think what we want, we do what we want, but in this heavenly world there are many things that we do not desire, and they are there and torment us. And sometimes we even do what we don't want ourselves. We avoid something, and it just appears in front of our eyes. It is difficult to live in an imperfect world. However, we have to be here. May it be the last time. 1587. God, mother, father, friend, as you prefer to feel God, such you experience without the slightest embarrassment or anxiety. God for you is like a flower whose fragrances you absorb and drink from it the sweetest nectar. 1588. We think of God. He did what was needed. He gave us a sense of existence and happiness. For this, He is to be respected from the deepest depths He has placed in us. This is simply amazing. How did He do it? Just adore Him, nothing more. I don't ask. Love forever. New sounds. Your spirit longs to break all fetters. His eyes are open like an eagle, as if it has no shapes. Thought can't express itself. Rainbows come out of the invisible. Here is the desire to break all fetters, to fly to the immensity of the heights, where matter knows no bones. Spirit groans. It lacks freedom. It would like to swing winged on the celestial sphere, desires to live beyond boundaries. At the sight of spring moments, faints enchanted, hears new sounds above human speech. Sight of a different world, sees a new world, understands that on earth things are uncertain. Your spirit sees treasures in the sky, runs as if independent. The whole globe seems narrow to it. Suns, planets, and all comets pierce in a flash like invisible sparks. Everything merges into infinity, words and gestures. A mystical adventure filling the great wants. Liberated from the edges of the mysterious flows with hope. 1589. Our soul works differently than many wish to comprehend. She does not look at the word, gestures, material, education. Above all, she seeks to see heavenly desires, which are hard to come by on earth. They give her the greatest consolation. The soul is fundamentally non-judgmental, happy to see when someone loves everyone equally. And she participates in it herself. There is no exclusive love. It only happens in the cosmos. That's why even Padre Pio told me, marriage is a purely human invention, despite the sacrament of marriage. 1590. You are so smart and you don't even know what principle you are thinking on. You are trying to prove that your thoughts come from the brain, and that is a mistake. Even if you had water in your head, you would still think. Padre Pio's words, only the soul thinks. The brain is such a processor that carries out the soul's commands. Nevertheless, nowadays the soul relies on the body and is closely connected with it. That is why it is so easy to confuse the soul with the body and the brain. 1591. Only God knows you to the end, because He created you, even though after that it became a mess. The cosmos was created with these unoriginal bodies. God made us perfect. He perfected both the body and the soul. Right now we only have the original soul. They changed the heavenly body into atoms, photons, cells, chemical processes. Man no longer has a divine body as he once did, but a human, cosmic, mortal body. We need salvation. 1592. Even when you are in heaven, you won't know everything, because there the knowing and admiring goes on constantly, without end, all eternity. So it is worth the effort here, so that later you can receive such a wonderful reward of admiring eternity. Here chop me, here burn me, I was in the future, had paradise. Padre Pio's words to me. 1593. there are still a few wonderful, crazy people in heaven. They ask God that they can be born among their fellow angels on earth. And this in a very ugly body. Not only that, they pack in extreme poverty, frailty, weakness, and poor health. Father Pio told us about this. They are not at all famous and do not shine by example. Sometimes they are beggars. They do it for one reason only, to give this hard life of theirs to the knowledge and love of those who have strayed too far into evil. And God secretly, through his channels of incarnation beyond the knowledge of aliens, sometimes allows this to happen. If someone has such a selfless desire, God agrees to the request of such a noble angel. In the end, he submits to God all the effort for others. Nothing for himself, he didn't need it anymore anyway, since he was in heaven. But he sacrificed the suffering of his life for others. We, living on earth, can also offer prayers or sufferings for others, provided you don't know to whom your intentions and suffering God will attribute. He knows best to whom. You can pray for someone specific, but God can still redirect it to other souls more in need. Padre Pio's words. In the end, all angels, people are your family and love. So don't be angry with God that he cares through you for everyone equally. 1594. In these times there will be a return to medieval, mystical thought, the words of St. John of the Cross, who came to speak. But this mystical thought will be based on only some Catholic mystics or yogis who can be counted on your fingers. This is already being done. The Middle Ages knew more than photon scientists, quantum scientists, engineers, physicists. The Middle Ages knew the alchemy of the spirit. 1595. Let's not forget, science is the soul's longing for truth, and there is nothing wrong with it. On the contrary, science too is an inner mysticism, but usurpers of education and diplomas make it a private selfishness. It's as if someone has discovered something that isn't there. Everything is there, and we search in the dark, using tools and numbers. Although invisible as air, but it is there. 1596. Remember, there are no enlightened people in the galaxy or on Earth. A sense of enlightenment means nothing, only pride, attention, money, and popularity. Jesus gave up everything, all the deity he had in heaven. He completely emptied himself of divinity when he was born on earth. He became a brother, a good man, the words of Padre Pio. 1597. It is forbidden throughout the material cosmos to speak or think about God. This law has been in operation since the beginning of the creation of the material world by the angels, which came out of heaven. Therefore, even today, it is difficult for us to talk about God, about the soul. Almost no one knows anything about it. Not even the priests, the riffraff. The soul intoxicated by human desires and loves. It returns after death to love, but in a limited way. This does not give it much. 1598. The aliens can't destroy the soul, but they seriously scratch it by blocking our access to it, which causes unrecognized, confused different realities and eventually bad habits, such as rabid atheism. Because of bad habits, God allowed the possibility of reincarnation, so that lives could be repeated and honed toward perfection. About reincarnation, Jesus clearly said, "Unless you are born again of water and spirit, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven." Every alien is valuable and necessary, since he has a soul from God. God's love is trying to draw everyone to himself, so that his children achieve eternal happiness and don't have to wander endlessly through the catastrophic cosmos created by the angels, contrary to God's intentions. However, aliens manipulate and use reincarnation for their own purposes, convincing souls after the death of the body that in the cosmos is their desired paradise, which is not true. Heartening value. The power of freedom never lost arranges itself into a symbiosis of mental projections, face covering empiricism harmoniously called to compress the most precious service. There the common resultant is strengthened with the building of experience. Feeling, the undeniable purple of superconsciousness, is the rise of impressions in the motif of essence. 1599. God has plenty of time. He will wait for the last angel from outer space. Padre Pio's words. He is like the best human parent, all the time looking out for his child, who was lost in genetics and the laws of nature, in the lake of unfulfilled dreams. God is waiting for the soul to come alive, and understands where it should go to satisfy all its divine desires. 1600. Cosmists have given us such bodies that we have to cover them with clothes, physical creations. In heaven, you cover yourself with whatever colorful rays you can think of. The closet of clothes is overflowing. The heavenly body is lovely, attractive, and can make even God dizzy. It's worth being in heaven. 1601. Does God necessarily have to exist? Of course he must. Some people ask themselves various questions, and since there is no answer from above, they doubt and do not believe. Well, so be it. God has no problem with our belief or disbelief. He knows very well who created us as flesh and what that someone hid in our flesh, so that we never think about God. This is solely our problem. God does not care about our belief or disbelief. He only wants our happiness, nothing else. And if the worlds are many and its stewards many besides the true God, so there are different problems of faith and unbelief. It doesn't matter at all, not even the slightest. Each soul is a creator of happiness and is only supposed to do that, but without exploiting others. That's all. God will be very pleased with something like this. Goodness and love. This is the basis for every delight of life, on earth and in heaven. However, we are touched by death and suffering. It is necessary to put an end to this in a scientific way, that is, to know the true God in heaven, and ask him to take us there after death. Strengthening conviction. Definitions of scientific conviction bring together those who find it difficult to predict the future's depths. Expressivity in everything tries to flare up, and in the dogmas of subjectivism too. According to the new dimensions of thinking should not be alien to the value of adoration. Physical similarities in the great genetic act are fulfilled in the evolution of faith. Playful dimensions of the universe according to the state of knowledge modestly and independently depth of belief prove how the deity of ignorance is sharpened in a mature way. Irresistible fear bonded with pain limits choices of correct action. Conflicts in understanding are the cause of our religious questions and investigations. But will it accomplish anything without the mercy of God? 1602. That's right, God didn't manufacture a hammer, a fork, or a mouse for a computer on Earth. He didn't erect cell masts and put TV satellites in orbit around the Earth. He didn't launch research testers into space. And importantly, it has not established a single religion on Earth. 1603. Faith and hope is the natural longing of the soul for an ideal life. Religions and worshipping various gods in them is a product of the ego mind, which also in some way desires the ideal. Religions are always at war with each other for truth and leadership on the planet. Faith, yes, let it be. But the religious rituals and dogmas of individual religions create dangerous characteristics that threaten peace and freedom. Religions express very dangerous intellectual beliefs, and they destroy love and consent. Jesus also didn't establish religions and build churches. He didn't leave rituals and rules. The only rule he left was this: love your neighbor as yourself, which, by the way, was already known to mankind. And of the incentives he left is the prayer to heaven, Our Father. That's all, which was also known before. 1604. Tradition and political and social considerations produce religions and strict obligations to them. Religions exist, as we can see, and if I had to determine what is the most proper religion, the most tolerant, I would choose the current Catholicism, Padre Pio's words. But even so, a tremendous amount of change is needed in it. First of all, to crush the political, inflexible tradition and understand the spiritual ignorance of the Church Fathers. What in return? The true teachings of Jesus, not the current pseudo-evangelical ones. The Church to this day hides the figure of the real Jesus. It must change this one day, and we will find that Jesus was against religions too. Religions are an easy business and a way to sustain it with precepts, prohibitions, and dogmas. Those who do not obey are killed, stoned to death. This tradition is still maintained by Islam. The Church used to do it too, but it has softened a bit and stopped these practices. It's time for the conversion of Islam and Judaism. Maybe we will live to see one day on our planet that there will be no religion. This is already the case on many planets, where they have salvation much closer than earthlings. As soon as religions are dissolved with the knowledge and science of the Spirit, true progress toward God will be highlighted, and brotherhood will prevail among all nations, in the name of love and the Creator of our conscious souls. 1605. God could convert all of humanity and all of the civilizations in the cosmos to himself in 1 second and move everyone to heaven, the words of Padre Pio. But he doesn't do that. He is not a tyrant, and he doesn't force us to do anything. We are entangled in ignorance, oblivion, and cosmic laws. We have to get out of it ourselves by means of conscience, by means of goodness and universal love. Not just love for oneself or own family, because love is universal. Others also help us, mediate salvation. We don't even know it. 1606. God respects freedom and counts on our personal commitment to the positive liberation of all, to show cosmic civilizations the true life beyond these worlds. We are to pray not only for our earth, but for all the earths in the galaxies where angels beyond the true heaven live. They are our colleagues from the past. Our earth is just a tiny village in space. Let us recognize all the cosmically afflicted and suffering. All material creation needs the care of the true sincere spirit. It needs liberation. We are not the only ones who have gone astray. 1607. Although we have freedom and do what we want and how we want, God still asks us to walk in His direction despite difficulties for our good. Nothing more is at stake for God than that we don't waste the opportunity to rediscover eternal life, our personal and also collective heaven. He knows that on earth with happiness is different. He proposes something better for us. Will we dare to embark on this journey to great happiness? I think each of us wants to. 1608. The highest culture is spiritual culture, a culture of mutual love based on good deed, good thought, kindness, non-judgment, patience, gentleness, and cosmic prayer. Opposites are garbage that should be moved away from the pure source. 1609. Music, singing, fun, wonderful balls, dancing. This is an engraved souvenir of heaven in the soul, and we always associate it with something wonderful, heavenly, enchanting. Then we forget about sorrows and troubles. One would like to do so always. However, tomorrow comes and the kolkhoz begins again. But in the secret of our hearts, we long for what was yesterday. We rightly yearn. Because there, hen in heaven, that's what it is. Joy and divine fun. Heaven is not a conspiracy theory, Padre Pio's words. 1610. Our reality as we experience it with our senses and mind is real, but imperfect, which is why suffering, evil, and wars exist in it. Even if the angels from heaven themselves lived here, they would still quarrel. The words of Padre Pio. One would snatch a piece of bread from the other to satisfy hunger. And besides, the laws of gravity, they apply in this world and they kill everyone. Bruises, fractures, collisions, accidents, disasters, all the fault of material gravity, different forces acting on each other, edifying and destructive, almost simultaneously. Therefore, the only solution is to leave the material galaxies and return to perfect matter in heaven. We have a great task, and a chance, once we have learned about it, that this is possible. That's why, among others, I write about it. This is also my task. 1611. Just as we take care of our own home so that it can function, protecting it from various dangers, and we are happy to have it, so the universes are the home of the angels, which they created for themselves, and live in them as civilizations. After leaving heaven, somewhere had to live, so the fallen angels created galaxies for themselves. And they take care of these worlds so that they can exist and develop independently of God for as long as possible. But as you can see by eye, no one is happy with them. Everyone is complaining, and rightly so. A life of hardship, disease, danger from air, water, and earth. Throughout life, stress, and in the end anyway, death. This is not an ideal world. Jesus said this very clearly. He pointed to the ideal world, to which we should strive with all our minds and hearts. We are to seek this world, dream about it, believe in it, meditate and pray for it. 1612. The angels, when they created the worlds, remembered well what systems function in the original heaven. They remembered what the heavenly cosmos was like. After they left heaven, they tried to create something along those lines. But it didn't work out. Initially, the cosmos was wonderful. After time, it degraded due to lack of God's energy supply. There is no going back. The cosmos will end its life sooner or later. And Jesus also spoke about this. Science confirms it. Atheists don't. They would rather hulk around the cosmos forever and trade junk. 1613. We live in an unoriginal heaven of fear and terror. We live in a paradise lost. We ourselves have somewhat manufactured this heaven, disregarding the suggestions of God, who warned us not to create it, because there would be problems later. But no, freedom carried us away on the wings of curiosity. Boom. Worlds were created against God's will. He allowed it because what was he to do, since he gave everyone freedom on Amen? Hardly. Today angels also come out of heaven, but sporadically. Padre Pio's words. They will sleep, then they will return. Now all that is left is to ask God to help us find our way back to the perfect, eternal, non-destructive world, where love and the pleasure of life reign. It is necessary to ask and apologize. God bends his ear to you and hears every whisper. Padre Pio's words. What he will do with our tears is his will. 1614. God created only once a limited number of his children, angels, in heaven for them. And until now he has created nothing. The words of Padre Pio. I repeat it again and again to remember. Padre Pio also repeated it to us over and over again, and sometimes with something new he launched, when he saw that the taking was already ready to accept a new truth. In the beginning he repeated, nothing before the Pope. And then, years later, he already forgave us. 1615. Worlds and various beings in them. These are the angels who are now wandering around the cosmos, hoping for joy and happiness. It doesn't work out very well. They are born, reincarnate, some clone bodies, heal them, insert prostheses, create various technologies so that one can travel through the cosmos. They set up private heavens, enclaves and prisons, little hells. They poison and kill. But they have a soul from God, which is why they still long for heaven. They lost their way, but they also don't let go, because they could return. God has given his hand first, the words of Padre Pio. They don't want to use it for now. For billions of years they must tire. Earthlings have it good enough, because Jesus came to them and said something interesting about it. And as we know, the true word gives life to the soul and body. Before Jesus, they were also similar. As a matter of fact, in every era, God sends someone into space from heaven to keep the embers of hope alive among the reluctant and longing. The words of Padre Pio. A colorful guide. You read your memoirs and poems, watch movies and fairy tales. You recall moments of wonder. You overhear your own past steps, but you encounter difficulties. You are overwhelmed by anxiety. You perceive moments of meaninglessness in the past. You even dare to call them nothingness. You wonder as a colorful guide stood in your way, and you cannot resist a much brighter future. The madness of birdsong wings, behold, the spring in your heart has awakened, bouquet of your feelings has flourished more beautifully than ever. So you close the pages of your diaries, obliterate your anxieties. You kidnap the tenderest eyes before you, and literalness opens in your soul forever sweet. 1616. Love should be moving like a thought, involved, gentle and emphatic at the same time. Otherwise, stagnation and regret await you. 1617. Human consciousness is substitute, unoriginal, limited by the genes of the body. After the last death in this world, you are freed from restrictions. And you get a body without genetic engineering, perfect, beautiful, and eternal. Created from the soul field. 1618. The spasms of the soul are its only life, the only perpetuum mobile of eternity. The mystique of pleasure is a heavenly garden for all who desire it. 1619. True heaven is not space, dust, and planets made of sand and rocks, but gold of happy sensations. In the world of ignorance, on earth, unattainable. Only one can dream about it. Dreams are harbingers of heaven. 1620. Only after the truth is revealed can we think about peace and true love. As long as religion and the power of states is controlled by higher civilizations of angels, we have no chance for peace and balance. For now, the spirit is losing to ideology and technology. Someday this will change. We are already too smart to be fooled. Jesus told them to their faces. That's why he died. 1621. The angels, who once came out of heaven, programmed us not with knowledge, but with ignorance. That's why we have trouble recognizing everything. Even love is sometimes a mystery to us. We promise ourselves greatness, and more often than not, we get a pinch on the nose. It didn't work out, if we had foreseen it, etc. On earth, there is a ban on predictions, a ban on spiritual visions. Genetics determines this. If we would have known the truth, the cosmos would have long since flown apart and been left empty. Everyone would have moved out of it, and God would have only cleaned up the dust his children produced by creating eminently imperfect galaxies. Let's rediscover it. All who are born here must die, Padre Pio's words. 1622. We love this world because it was ultimately created by angels. But yet they left God earlier. They thanked him and went on their own. They created the material heavens, the cosmos. And what happens in it? Hardly anyone endures in it. On the globe, a suicide is committed every 40 seconds. Not to mention murders, wars, and other criminal religious and atheistic rituals. To get out of it, we must love everything and everyone. To divine everything we can, turn evil into good, sorrow into joy. To love, love, love. A difficult task, but there is no other way but to transform, to change, to produce warm feelings in the soul and body, to be closer to the true heaven. Good freedom. Freedom is reserved for good, and only for good authentic possibility. The sum of beauty, what does not fall into misery. Its main value, can love be cold as ice? Who will comprehend the dialogue between beauty and freedom? In understanding this, tears can come in handy. Feed the truth with freedom. Feed freedom with truth. You can. 1623. Purely human interests and ambitions entail serious consequences. An ancient dispute between the needs of the intellect hidden spirit appears here. Troubles, human concerns, deception of the other, desire for power, education for education's sake, all these are subject to the desires of the flesh. The fanaticism of matter is the strength of many leaders today. They are the ones who organize schools under the dictates of their materialistic views. Thus, in the propaganda of the body, which is a strong expression of the ego, detailed programs are organized for the persecution of the spirit. Materialist literature is a belief in monuments, diplomas, degrees, and political leadership. It is a belief in the rituals of culture. Their way of thinking does not need to be defended, for the objects are concrete, visible things. Materialists are characterized by military honor, meticulousness, unforgiveness, exaggerated virtue of work and discipline. Attachment to own household, company, and homage to authority, whatever it may be, as long as it works in their favor. Inflated ambition punishes them to create new commandments and norms of conduct, such that they differ little from the spiritual, but that they have no spirit in them. Unfortunately, in most cases, they have won an effective victory. Quite a few people have opted for this new commandment. Progress, yes. Spirit, no. There is nothing left to do but through spiritual education to unmask the temptations of the aliens, the rulers, the kings of the cosmos, to whom almost everyone succumbs, flying to them like moths to the light. 1624. The material heaven outside the true heaven, i.e. our universe, is not the grace of God, but only allowing it to exist. God, by giving freedom to the creators, the angels, closed the way. What follows? Through misused freedom, quarrels, jealousy, hatred, weapons of mass destruction, earthquakes, disease, death arise. And there is nothing God can do, because he promised equal freedom to all. From heaven to hell, hell was never in God's plans. We created it ourselves as a result of bad emotions in the material cosmos. A copy of heaven that has fallen. Private empires, Now we have to get out of them. Plato mentioned this in his Ideas. Jesus pointed out precisely how to get out of this depression of pseudo-heaven. With the commandment of love, one does it. It is very positive and relationship building with God. Why a commandment? Because we have even forgotten that love exists. That's how we have been limited. 1625. The progress of civilization consists in changing the human character for the better and better. To accomplish this, it is necessary to immerse him continuously in soft love. 1626. If someone finds that he does not need salvation, it means that his empirical and practically educated intellect has completely plunged him into ignorance. Even though he would know all knowledge and all quantum and other theories, nothing will help him. Such a system that can only be broken out of by messengers from heaven. This was Jesus as the way and the gate. The messengers from heaven had the true light. Material knowledge, intellectual knowledge, does not bring this light. Sometimes it bogs us down. Yes, it helps us to live, but in a fallen heaven, in the cosmos. And this is not the life we want. 1627. Where did the cosmos come from? Some of the angels left the original heavens long ago and created private heavens, cosmic ones. What happened to these heavens? We see with our eyes. It's not very interesting. 1628. No death in the galaxies, in this huge hospice and grave at the same time, is not the grace of God. Mental illnesses, schizophrenia, hydrocephalus, cancer, decay, handicaps after accidents, damage to the body's bioenergetics. All this is not the grace of God. For the mercy of God, even the death of Jesus is not a grace, but the fault of the pride of Roman and Jewish power. 1629. Everything is a state of mind, i.e., the self. The mind and the world is it. The ego needs the pleasure of heaven. Everything is the heaven of mind and imagination. Form is the state of mind. Heaven is the mind state of form. Everything is one in the richness of the soul's form and idea. All thought is transformed into form and vice versa. This is also what heaven is all about. Creativity in all directions. Willingness, Padre Pio's words, 1630. This needs to be rethought. Space skies are not ideal, on the contrary catastrophic in every way. They have rape and violence written into their nature. For example, in the animal world through the digestive system, which forces killing all the time. In humans, moreover, it is similar. Is there a way out of this? There is, but no longer in this cosmos. Here we can prepare for the start to the real heaven. The better the preparation, the better the start. Jet power is needed, and there is only one fuel. Love your neighbor as yourself. This fuel has the power to lift everyone to heaven. 1631. I know how difficult and sometimes unpleasant my reflections are, and how often I repeat the same things. But I can't do otherwise. I have gone through millions of lives to get to this point. Don't be angry with me. If I had conducted my thoughts differently, I would have gone astray again. This is already my last life on the planets in space. I know this from Padre Pio. Not everyone has to benefit from my experiences and thoughts. Everyone has free will and his individual consciousness, his pleasures of love. I have nothing to them. I can only connect to them with love, if there is consent. Let everyone feel love in his own way, and color it as much as he can. And shout in the streets after Francis of Assisi, why love is not loved. I made an appointment with Francis of Assisi already. 1,500 years ago. He was a friend of mine. Even before his birth, we knew each other. We are trying to do something. It goes poorly. Even if you help one soul, it's already a lot, and you can help many, Padre Pio's words. 1632. Our life has no meaning if we are not guided by the wisdom of happiness. Is unhappiness our goal in life? No. And yet we like to be born here for these misfortunes. It is difficult to understand. 1633. The body can help find the soul by reflecting on its senses and pleasures. There is no other way. The pleasures of life direct one to prolong them indefinitely. Man begins to wonder, can there be eternal pleasure? And with this he begins to look for the eternal element. After the short-lived earthly pleasures of the body, which, however, fail in gaining joy. He begins to resort to what is beyond the body, to the consciousness of the soul. This is the order of things. Jesus knew this truth perfectly well, and at one point said, to the surprise of the holy men, Hermeticists, teachers of the law, colleagues, friends, publicans and harlots will precede you into the kingdom of heaven. 1634. Life on earth, it's almost all extremes, from democracy and screaming because of suffering and poverty to depression and stress. Sacrifice. For what purpose was it invented? Even the Old Testament says, I desire love and not sacrifice. And we still die, we still kill, still Jews and others slaughter people and animals. What kind of God do we finally recognize? A murderer and a killer. This is not the true God but a hoaxer, a false galactic ruler. Well, I will still say that this God also, we cannot condemn because he has an eternal soul. He will eventually convert to selfless love and return with us to heaven. Padre Pio told us about this. When? It can be done today, but no one wants to love and experience angelic pleasures. We prefer bitterness, loneliness, suffering, work, cold cause, envy, hatred, superiority over others, high education and gigantic salaries. We prefer to know many languages to make a career in a world of finite matter where God is not present. And only one language would suffice, which everyone feels perfectly because of the only grace we have here, ourself, that is, the soul. It is the language of love. Everything but the soul in this world is a mistake and a disaster of planetary and cosmic existence. But who wants to understand this today? Jesus spoke clearly about it, what this world is. He encouraged to abandon it, because it does not befit a great soul. It is too bitter fruit. Tradition, culture, money, the riches of the intellect, the world market of gadgets and poisonous pills. With this, the teachings of Jesus have been alienated, and on top of that, they have been distorted, as has been constantly happening in history. And the teachings of Jesus are very promising and unbelievably joyful, even delightful, and most importantly, childishly simple. 1635. Wisdom is sometimes poured into someone from above. This is decided by God. Sometimes the whole of heaven sends someone here in secret to crush human science and human wisdom, to show peace and eternal ideals. This is what Padre Pio said. Altar of meaning. You think about values. You allow the activities of your heart to hope right. The land of beauty vowed smile and plenty of time for freedom. Thousands of redemptions you wish to lay on the altar of solutions. That thought dripping with the oil of wisdom never betray. Don't put the hood of denial on it, so save the soul considering. The finest wisdom, offer it to yourself. 1636. At the beginning of the road to God, there is a lot of faith and little knowledge. In the higher grades, there is a lot of knowledge and less faith. Because faith is replaced by the openness that God reveals to the soul as a reward for goodness and love. Otherwise, doubt alone. 1637. Only consciousness changes the genetic type of consciousness. The higher the consciousness, the more beautiful the vision of life. The vision of life erases all galactic and infantile genotype to zero. Perfect love. The discovery of eternal life. 1638. Let's not avoid matter, if it is already so. Currently, we live as we live, in plastic, lead and metals, noble and less noble. Let us relate matter to the higher heavenly realm. Then we will precipitate the angels, the lords of the cosmos, the weapon of control and domination over us. Let us worship God as love, and the world will transform for the better. Lead, silver, and gold will slowly disappear from our consciousness, as well as other elements that hinder our spiritual progress. Alchemy will prevail. And this is a higher level of development than the current one. Father Pio also spoke of alchemy. 1639. One way or another, your life has to be lived. You were born outside paradise, outside heaven. You are in a difficult situation, a time of silence, of ignorance, a time of emptiness, of loneliness, even in marriage and society. You were born alone and you will die alone. You must endure all this and somehow understand it. First of all, understand God. Why did He allow there to be suffering? He certainly did not do it maliciously. So let's look for answers. Any answer that justifies God is the right one. So who caused the suffering if not God? Let's continue to search. 1640. The body is a form of testing the soul to the extreme, although this is not quite the case. Rather, we are forced to take on such an imperfect body so that one can suffer without meaning to. And one suffers mainly because of the implicit truth. The physical body limits thinking and cognition. This is the purpose of the body in this form. We did not give ourselves this body, nor did our parents fund it as a gift. The intention is in a higher layer of intelligence, outside of man. This is the wrong intention. Jesus, the great philosopher and thinker, discussed this with others. The cause of everything is always the soul, not the body. Except that the soul was also trapped, not only in matter, but primarily in the intellectual and emotional matrix, which caused it to scratch. The consequence is an unoriginal body. The body is the shell of the soul, Padre Pio's words. 1641. Everything is eternally free. Heaven is worth trying. One can be convinced of him, and quickly, while still in this life, not waiting for another passing life. And what did Jesus say to the thief on the cross? Even today you will be with me in paradise. The scoundrel repented and asked Jesus to help him with his soul. And from the heart he helped him, because the man wanted to use this help. Today as before, one can communicate with Jesus, but only with thoughts and feelings. The rest are symbols of communication. 1642. Any thought can be a cause for joy. It doesn't have to be a thought about God. Everything can rejoice because we have heaven within us. We radiate and create happiness within ourselves constantly. Therefore, everything we create mentally and physically should make us happy, as long as we do not consciously harm others. True joy is not directed against anyone. Therefore, in happiness, everything is possible. 1643. What is the grace of God? It is only His creation. And where is His creation? In heaven and partially outside heaven. The cosmos is not God's creation, nor is it His grace. It is the product of rebel angels. We already know today what the cosmos means: annihilation, manipulation, and death. Grace is only perfect, eternal life in heaven. Suffering is not grace, but surprise, a byproduct of matter. There is only one grace available to us in the galaxies, which no alien can destroy. That is our soul with its imagination and desires. Let us not delude ourselves. There is no other grace here. There are hard laws of nature and laws invented by the ego. Every day we have to overcome them, struggle against them, subconsciously hoping for some kind of salvation. These are no jokes. Discomfort is our tragedy, and the soul is destined for mere comforts and sublime experiences. 1644. The law of youth, to get in the head without fault. The law of old age, death without meaning. 1645. Our mortal body is not a grace of God, but a cosmic trap. It dies, gets sick, suffers, is perpetually hungry, and in need of primitive transformation. Nature similarly, is not the grace of God. It is the idea of frustrated beings for the functioning of the created by them, pseudo-heaven. Everything we see and experience in this fallen, suffering world is not a grace of any kind, but a cosmological mistake made by the creators, the pygmies. God created perfect things and perfect souls in perfect bodies, which are in heaven. And we are not in heaven. We live precisely outside of it. Sometimes we recall paradise and long for it. Jesus pointed the direction to paradise. Spark of transcendence. When I looked into the past, I saw behind me full of dust, and when my thought went in the opposite direction, I saw the future, and in it hope and nights to brightness uncovered. I anchored my happiness in them. I saw islands blooming. The land quietly warmed. From greenery as if swollen, I saw talking parks and trees entwined in love. I was allowed to weep with happiness. Here from dust and ashes grew my immense joy. I also saw stars playing on the shores of lakes. I saw the goddess of future. I can't tear myself away from the gloom that came over me seeing these beauties, unable to fully taste them myself. O energy of divine love, brighten into the full our future, and pour into our hearts the happiness born in the rays. 1646. It doesn't matter whether you suffer physically or die. whether you will be stalked every day by angels from the galaxy or gentlemen in black under a tie or green men. The important thing is that you survive and discover something significant with the hope of eternal life. And with this shorten the wandering of other souls in the cosmos, at least by 10,000 years. This will already do a lot for God. A word, a thought, they change whole worlds. Life, death in the galaxy, it really does not matter much. This is normality, everyday life. Everything here will pass away one day anyway. 1647. You've already lived billions of years and are still alive. Didn't the great angel, direct from heaven, Jesus, say that, unless you are born again of water and spirit, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven? Nothing more, nothing less. It's all about a new page of life, unblemished, to start all over again. If your previous life was wasted. The simple conclusion: if we are still living here, it means that the previous lives were effectively wasted. Jesus, superstar, the best, the prince from the most beautiful fairy tale imaginable, knew a lot and how to help man save himself. Padre Pio at the talk confirmed to me that Jesus talked about reincarnation. The church still hides this knowledge. 1648. People envy each other because they can't yet, or don't want to see the beauty in others. In fact, they don't see their own beauty in other souls. And this also gives happiness. You want to be loved, don't envy, because that person loves you in other people. Let's imitate God. If he envied and favored his favorite angels, what would happen to us? He has a love equal for all, without distinctions. Such love is worth learning, but it is a difficult task. We constantly lose in this matter. We do not know how to continue to love so nobly. Without love for all, heaven will continue to be closed to us. Let's open ourselves to love as much as possible, because still very much souls from the cosmos need deliverance. 1649. The state of mindlessness is also heaven. It calms, gives contentment, loosens up. It is a walk in heaven in awe, but without thinking or paying special attention. 1650. Heaven can happen to you from the outside. Although you have your created heaven inside, you can respond to external beauty, which will add extra happiness to your heaven. The outer sky will pour into your inner sky. What happens there then? Everyone knows. 1651. Each of us creates our heaven with the soul's imagination, which is infinite. A huge number of words and meanings can be created from a short alphabet. So the soul can create happiness for itself limitless with its internal ability to create whatever it desires. Even desires she can create for herself to give her another happiness. It is all up to her alone. Heaven means something different to everyone at any given moment, the words of Padre Pio. This is also the reason why we can delight in each other, because we are always different to each other. We differ in our view of beauty, desire, touch, love. This delights and arouses feelings of adoration. This is exactly how life plays out in heaven. On earth, we have the beginnings of this. 1652. There are different theories, different philosophies of thinking and acting in the modern world, as well as different educational paths. However, according to the Charter of Reality, the position of these basic sciences does not satisfy people, does not clearly define the purposefulness of human life, and most importantly, does not free people from disease and death. The lectures given by scientists and specialists, the extensive consultations conducted, follow their own fantasies, and do not achieve the perfection of the highest destiny. These activities do not lead to true knowledge. The soul is the highest state and way of knowing, and it in material conditions does not have such capabilities, much less speculative science, philosophy, technology, are not able to know the truth. So faith and hope still apply. Individual souls only break out of these fetters. May there be as many of them as possible. It is necessary to start with the blotter, as the early Christians, or